It's that time of the month again, people. You know what we gotta do. Make a tier list for the characters of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. Now, obviously, my list is the one that is objectively correct because I am making a video on the internet. Therefore, that means everything that you're about to hear is 100% factual, and that you, yes you, are personally obligated to believe this list entirely. So let's get in here and just start cooking, shall we? Speaking of cooking, let's go with our one and only C tier of the list. Is it A? Is it Glimmer? No, it's Riku. Riku's coming in at C tier. Now, just a reminder, none of these characters I actually dislike. It's just in relation to each other. And the only reason Riku's going into C tier is I kind of like him a little bit more now after this DLC, but there wasn't all that much here for him. So personally, I'm just going to put him in C tier. Let's go for the double. Panacea and Linka are going into D tier. Why are they in D tier for me? Well, these are characters that had a lot of potential, but outside of the side quests, they don't really go anywhere. They're just kind of there. I think the birthday quest was a nice addition here, but it made me care more about Rex than it did about Linka. Both these characters are just kind of okay, they're just there. They don't ruin any scene they're in, but they don't really add much to the overall story, at least for me. Now let's go with Glimmer. Where are we gonna put Glimmer? This one will be an interesting one, because I'm gonna put Glimmer in A tier. The first A tier of the evening. And this is a character that, for me, was very front-loaded in terms of their story development. She had a lot of it come in during chapters 1 and 2, and while it wasn't all that much in the grand scheme of things for a shortened story experience like Future Redeemed, I thought it was sufficient, and her interactions with Nicole, Rex, and everyone else made me think that she was a fine addition to the cast. Now, having said that, I'm gonna put Nicole in B tier for the sole reason that he doesn't really have a big story moment. Sure, he has that one scene where he teams up with Glimmer to fight Shulk and Rex, which is very cool, and I do like the character of Nicole. I think his interactions with everyone else surprisingly shocked me, because if I went into this DLC beforehand, I would have told you I would have expected him to be maybe C or D tier. So I'm pleasantly surprised with how Nicole came out, but I do prefer Glimmer at the end of the day, story-wise. Now, this next one may be a bit controversial. I like this character, he's one of my favorite characters in the entire series, but for the duration of Future Redeemed, I think he was kinda okay. Like, he was okay for me. I think his brightest shining moment is when he teamed up with Matthew at the very end to fight Alpha. That was a great moment. And sure, the fact that he didn't intend to kill his son is interesting little aspect of nuance to his character, but to me, there was nothing here that particularly blew me away with N, because I already held him in such high esteem from the base game. So yes, I would say they made him even a little bit better, B for better, but due to his limited time just being there overall, I'm gonna put him in B tier because there's just other characters that I kind of prefer seeing in Future Redeemed. Speaking of, let's talk about someone I would rank, if I could, between A and B, and that's Nile. Now, there's some people, I think this is probably going to be the most polarizing character in Future Redeemed, is Nile, because of the way they tackled her storyline. Some people wanted way more to go alongside this character. She could have easily been a character in a mainline Xenoblade game that an entire story arc that unraveled over maybe 50 hours or so, or up to 100. They could have done something along those lines, but it's Future Redeemed, which is, again, a 15 to 20 hour storyline, depending upon how you tackle it. So it was a very streamlined experience, which keeps her out of A or S tier for me. But the story that we did get with her was very enjoyable, and I really liked the nuance and perspective she gave to a world like Ionios. She helped deliver a lot of the emotional investment, in my opinion, in the back half of the game, and I think that's something I appreciate about her as a character. I do wish we got a little bit more with her, but from what we had, I do like her, so I'll put a B for middle of the road for me. Now let's talk A. I'm gonna put A in A tier. Kind of fitting, right? And honestly, I rate A kind of similarly to Nile, where if Nile's like leaning towards B, but I have her like middle of the line between A and B, I would have A be middle of the line between A and B, but leaning towards A. I think her interactions with Shulk and Rex are really good and help bring back a lot of that good old Xenoblade 1 and 2 nostalgia. I really appreciated that. I appreciate how she kind of represented a bridging of the gap between the lore and story and characters from Xenoblade 1 and 2 to Xenoblade 3. I think she has some fun interactions with Matthew, and just overall a character that I enjoy having them in the storyline, who also has a great number of quotes, especially in the back end when you get to Chapter 5. Now, I'm gonna put Alpha in A tier as well, but for different reasons. For me, Xenoblade Chronicles, and I talked about this in a couple of my videos, is a series all about going into the future and the repercussions and the reasons for doing so. And really, in my opinion, Alpha was kind of the one last viewpoint they needed to tackle, which is someone who's willing to throw away the entirety of the past to move into the future. And I really appreciated how they tackled this storyline with Alpha and saying, hey, even though Kevas and Agnes are inflicting terrible atrocities upon one another and causing so much pain and suffering, the lion's share of the blame still lies on Mobius, and we shouldn't sacrifice all these people just to blindly walk into the future while ignoring the past and all that's came before, because we'll be doomed to repeat it. I think Alpha, as a character, brought a very interesting dynamic to cap off the Klaus saga for Xenoblade Chronicles, which is why I put them in A tier. Again, my biggest problem I'm going to have with most of the Future Redeemed characters is the fact that they're in Future Redeemed and not a numbered Xenoblade Chronicles game where they're going to have enough time to properly be fleshed out and expanded on. Because all of these characters feel like they could have been main characters in a mainline Xenoblade game, but that storyline got streamlined to fit in the DLC. That's what a lot of these characters' storylines feel like to me, and Alpha's another one of those characters where he could have easily been a character, or the main villain of a numbered Xenoblade game, a game that takes you 100 hours to beat, or if not more. But he's in Future Redeemed, and do they hit all the major points that I think they needed to? Yes. Does he have a cool freaking fight at the end with amazing scenes? Yes, as well. He's a great character in my opinion. I'm glad Alpha exists. I'm glad all these characters exist, mostly. But to me, if you want to go into S tier, I would have want a little bit more from him personally. Now we have 3 characters remaining. No S tiers yet. I'm gonna tackle the next 2 at the same time because honestly my opinions of Shulk and Rex are kind of the same for each of these characters. I'm gonna put Shulk and Rex in S tier for a very specific reason, because I don't think story-wise or just because of their appearance in Future Redeemed that they're S tier quality. If you never played Xenoblade 1 and 2 before, and you just looked at 3 and Future Redeemed, I would probably argue Shulk and Rex are like B or A tier. But I have played Xenoblade 1 and 2, and I really appreciated the way they continued these characters' storylines while not compromising on themselves as characters. And honestly, I think the biggest argument I could make, or to myself, to put, or reason have Nickel in A tier, is just because of his dynamic with Shulk, and the way Shulk is trying to be a parent but without saying it. It was a lot of heartwarming scenes between these characters, in my opinion, Shulk and Nickel. Then we talk about Rex and his interactions with Glimmer, which is completely different to Shulk with Nickel. But what I really liked about Rex's character in Future Redeemed is that it felt like a continuation of him as a character. Because, remember in Xenoblade 2 when his recklessness and full steam ahead approach cost people he cared about? Like Vandam, Fan Lenorn, those characters died. Pyra and Mithra getting kidnapped or captured by Jin and Malus. These things happened in Rex's mind for large reasons because of his recklessness. Because he wasn't willing to think. He wasn't willing to ascertain the situation. So he doesn't have a problem doing it himself, but he doesn't want to see others, like Nickel and Glimmer, make the same mistakes that he did. Also, he's just cool. Same thing with Shulk. Sometimes rule of cool is okay. And now we have Matthew, our protagonist. Where would I put Matthew? He is full of beans, so I could put him in B tier for that, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to put him in D tier. I don't think I'm going to put him in C tier. He's full of beans, and the gas is going to propel him up to S tier. For a protagonist who's a wholly new character that we haven't seen before in Xenoblade, that is introduced within the confines of one of the shortest stories in this series of Future Redeemed. I really enjoyed him as a protagonist. He had heart, he had character, he had cool fighting scenes. The way he humbled Nickel and Glimmer when they first met was sick. The way that he was willing to go toe-to-toe against Mobius, love that. I love protagonists that are strong and that are able to recognize that fact and be cool about it. Matthew's a character like that. He's the type of character who's willing to punch first and never bother asking questions later. But he isn't an idiot, which I also really appreciate, because normally when you get hard-headed characters like this, they're just dumb. And sure, he has certain scenes where he is dumb, but he's not strictly dumb. He's able to reason, figure things out for himself, not be an idiot all the time. I appreciate that for Matthew as a character. And for me, he was one of the early standouts in Future Redeemed, and he never faltered from that for me. He was just a fun character to have around, who made the story better, who made the entire party around him more interesting. So I value that tremendously. And honestly, it's a shame that he's only the protagonist of Future Redeemed. I would have loved to have seen him, again, in a 100+ hour RPG, because his character was that strong where I'm like, okay, I could easily see this character being engaging for a full-length Xenoblade game. So yeah, that's my tier list for the characters of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. Just as a reminder, there's no character here that I actively dislike or that I think made the story worse by the conclusion. D is just kind of, I'm here or there, I don't really care one way or the other. C, we get to like, I kind of like them, they're pretty good. B gets to, yeah, I do like these characters. A, I'm like, I'm really liking these characters. S is, I'm loving these characters. But I do think, I want to just talk about Riku for a little second here. Within the confines of Future Redeemed, I think he is a C tier character. However, overall, when we're talking about Xenoblade 3 as well, I do think he went up a tier for me. I would probably put him somewhere in A tier overall, when we're taking Xenoblade 3 into account as well. Just because we don't get a lot in Future Redeemed, but what we do get just adds to his backstory, makes him a little bit more of a compelling character. So yeah, I'm going to call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great day. Go hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload and stream in the future, because we got Tears of the Kingdom coming out very soon. Stay safe. Have a great day. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody, until we meet again.